At least I had the common decency to open up my Monster when we weren't recording.
Wes gives no fucks.
Yeah, clearly. Oh my God, no.
Okay, I'm done with that.
Wes, we're gonna need a kazoo at some point today to really lighten the blow here. So
Kazoo on standby.
that was kind of a somber F flat.
Well, this is flat out F.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the country and around the world. This is the Life Midwest Podcast. Join us, a Washington musician, a communications major, and some guy from the West Coast as we explore life's endeavors and, no, not really, but we talk about things that are currently happening and what's going on in the world and just, sharing our thoughts and views on it from a Midwestern perspective. Here to carry that out is your host, Kevin Palmer. We got our Thai correspondent, Wes Shirley.
Sawadee Kap.
And Seattle's best, and I'm not talking about the coffee, Lenny Wells.
Asa, dude.
I thought of that intro about 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, I'm not going to fucking tell him I'm going to do that.
Was that West Coast enough for you?
Yeah, dude. I have no idea. Yeah, sure. It was fine. Pacific Northwest. I mean, aren't you just sitting there in a flat, like a Patagonia, like flannel or something? Or
we've discussed this many times, but I will not be caught dead in a flannel.
Yeah, I know. I can still picture it though, and that's good enough for me. Yeah, a not so happy discussion this week that we're probably going to have, but nonetheless, it's we're a current events podcast, and these are the types of things that we talk about. So I think the best thing that you can do when you're doing a current events podcast is you try to stay neutral and you try to not have an opinion or form an opinion about these things to the point where you're telling people how to feel. But I think this is just one of those things where you just kind of have to. I don't know if take a stance is the right word here, but definitely feel pretty strongly about. I know that Lenny and Wes do especially, and I don't want to speak for them. I mean they're going to obviously spill their 2 cents into this too here, but. Just kind of reading off of this thread here that kind of summarizes the bill. This is from Pole Volt Power on Twitter. It says, "This is my daughter. She just turned 9. Here's why I would never allow her to play middle or high school sports if we lived in Ohio." A few days ago, the Ohio representatives passed a change to state law that was snuck in at the last minute under the guise of "quote unquote" protecting girls' sports. This law allows anyone to dispute the sex of an athlete on a school team. There are no safeguards in place to ensure that this is not used maliciously. Girls who do not look feminine enough, girls of color, girls who are, quote, too good, end quote, are likely to be the biggest targets. But any girl can be targeted. Maybe someone doesn't like her parents, or maybe somebody wants to make sure the opposing team doesn't have enough eligible players. So what does a girl have to do to prove she is a girl? I mean, that alone right there, right, guys? I mean, that alone right there, what does a girl have to do to prove she is a girl? This opens up a huge fucking can of worms. Am I right?
You're absolutely right on the money with it.
So first step is the physician has to examine the girl's external and internal reproductive anatomy. I have to emphasize that this will impact girls as young as 5th or 6th grade, 10 to 11 years old, a year or two older than my daughter. Step 1 to proving your correct sex is female. A doctor will need to spread open your labia and examine the size of your clitoris. A clitoris that is, quote, too large, end quote, could be a sign that you are intersex and not female enough for sports. Like, what the fuck? I could just stop there and we'd have an entire fucking episode.
All right, putting aside my just gut reaction as someone who gives a fuck about the rights of other people, or even as a parent, there's so much just variance in the way that people are built naturally. So to like, how could you possibly say this? And with not only with a straight face, but actually mean it, write it into law, and just have zero just disregard for the privacy of a person. But not only that, the privacy of a minor, of children. We need to keep going because there's more to this.
Yeah, I mean, it only gets worse. So step 2 to proving that your correct sex is female. A doctor will then insert 1 or 2 glove fingers inside your vagina while pressing against your abdomen with their other hand so they can feel your uterus and ovaries. This will likely be painful for young girls and it's probably extremely traumatic. There's no medical reasons to do a pelvic exam on girls this young, absent any signs of a problem. This is sexual assault will traumatize these girls. That is by design. This part of the exam would probably be covered by insurance, depending on how it is billed, but these next 2 steps would likely be not covered for most people. And that brings us to step 3 to proving that your correct sex is female. Your blood will be drawn and your testosterone levels measured. How much testosterone is too much? Unclear. So it's a gray area, right? Like, okay, does having high T give girls an advantage? No, not always, but this bill leaves no room for nuance, it seems. Step 4 to proving your correct sex is female. Your blood will be tested to see if you are XX or XY. Except not everyone is XX or XY, and there are XY women who have no advantage in sports because of the nuances of their genetics, but that won't matter here. This bill offers protection from retaliation for people who report an athlete they suspect is not truly female. There is no requirements that they make these reports in good faith. There is no protection for athletes accused of lying about their sex. Any athlete who suspects they were quote-unquote harmed by an athlete who lied about their sex can sue that school district. If that athlete's parents are unwilling to have their daughter sexually assaulted or cannot afford the testing, the district will have to pay to the accuser. So from an administrative standpoint, you basically have to require that all female athletes do this testing in order to play interscholastic sports. Otherwise, your district is in danger of having to forfeit games and losing litigation if you don't have this paperwork up front. Interscholastic sports in Ohio will only be accessible to girls whose parents are willing to subject them to sexual assault and very expensive and unnecessary blood work. Congrats to everyone trying to quote-unquote save women's sports from your trans athlete boogeymen. Is winning the most important part of high school sports? Because setting aside the incredible trauma and expense caused by the bill, at the end of the day, the message is that winning is what matters the most. That's not the lesson I want my daughter to learn from sports. Holy shit.
Yeah, it reads like Larry Nassar's wet dream of a law. He's the Olympic women's team doctor who has been arrested and charged on multiple occasions for sexually assaulting the women's sports athletes for the U.S. team. There's just so much to get into. First and foremost, for me, the fact that this even was able to go through speaks volumes to just how blind, tone deaf, and just overall separated that Ohio's legislature is from the everyday people, women in general. It's state-sponsored molestation, as far as I care to say it.
I mean, and the first thing I thought of though, Lenny, is that you and not to get touchy here, but you have kids, and so I'm just sitting here thinking like, my God, if I'm a parent in the state of Ohio, I just with a girl, I mean, I just, with a daughter, I can't fathom this. I can't think about this.
I don't know anybody that would actually believe this to be a good idea if they're a parent and B, think about it for more than 2 seconds. Regardless of what your stance are or your stance is in regards to trans women and sports, this isn't how you stop that.
No, it's absolutely not. because and let me play devil's advocate here for a second. The purpose of this bill is essentially, in my eyes, is essentially to stop or quote unquote protect women's sports from transgender people. But if we're really going to take that stance and that argument, I mean, do we really have trans 9, 10, 11-year-olds running around? No.
Yeah, I can't say that. I don't think you can say that. Why would you even need to dispute the gender of a child? What does that do? It doesn't do anything for you. Or I don't understand like why this is necessary at all. Again, I understand that some people believe that there's a bunch of trans people out there trying to ruin the quote unquote sanctity of um, of high school sports by being a man, but quote, just saying, "Oh, look, I identify as a woman," and just winning. I, that's all it seems like it is to me. People that just don't understand, one, women, and two, trans people.
I think that's the myth that they're spreading, though. There was that person on the WNBA who was discovered to be a man, I think, if that's even true. But like that's the myth that they're operating on, is that just like that. I actually don't recall what it was from, but someone referred to it as the boogeyman of sports or whatever, is these transgender males coming in and just like breaking records or whatever. There is a myth that along those lines is spread to a lot of people who are, you could say, more credulous or just don't think critically, and they run with that. Like that's the fuel that they really like, so they can get politically charged on some topic that's completely irrelevant to their life. Generalizing a bit, I guess, but
people react more substantially to fear or fear-based things. And so if you have something that could be questioned or could be put away, or could be put to bed, with some ration, it's more of, there's this, well, if I spread fear or this myth or this, then I'll have people taking, my side on this like completely outlandish, thought process. I instantly think of, and it's totally not the same thing, but I instantly think of when we, had that pipeline issue where one of the pipelines was like hacked or like ransomed or something like that. And people were literally filling up like plastic bags with fucking gasoline because fear makes people do stupid things. And I think this is one of those things where there's like this fear, and the fear is completely unfounded, right? Like I think we can all agree that there's no reason to fear, quote unquote, what we're actually, what these lawmakers are actually trying to quote unquote protect. But I think this is this is just another episode of people trying to, and instead of the target being plastic bags and wasting gas, it's fucking children, and I think that's what makes it scary. And the other thing I think about this too when I read this is you have a issue where this is an adult issue, this is an agenda, and now we're involving kids, and kids are getting caught in the crossfire, and they're being assaulted because of an agenda being pushed by lawmakers.
That's like another thing. Think about it from, if you think about it from a psychological view of that child, of that person that's being accused of, quote, not being female enough, or not being a woman enough of a woman enough, just how stigmatizing that can be. Because that's going to have a knock-on effect in their social life, even if it's not true. Like all it takes is one person that doesn't like that kid even at their home school, right? So let's say you're at for example, let's put this in context that like we all understand. Let's say you're at a track meet, right? So you're out at the Glenwood facility, you're at the track, you just run a race, and there's people from Rossford High School there, and because everybody's friends with a bunch of different people throughout the school, but there's someone there that doesn't like you for whatever reason, and then someone from a coach or another athlete from Lake High School accuses you or insinuates that you might not be truly female or truly a woman. And now you can't compete in the rest of the events that you are maybe supposed to. And well, people start asking questions. Why isn't this person competing? And that person from your school that doesn't like you finds out they're accused of being trans or intersex, or that there's something wrong with them. And now that's going to spread through the school like wildfire, because I don't think people realize just how shitty teenagers are just in general, but especially to each other. There's a lot of like variables, sure, and we're making a lot of assumptions with this, but I see it happen a lot because I have a teenage child at home, and I hear about this stuff happening all the time. Obviously not this like specific example, but just the shit kids say to each other. So that's just going to have like I said, it's going to have a knock-on effect throughout the rest of their social life. And that's psychologically damaging. It's psychologically traumatic. And then in order, you either, with this law in place, you either have to just stop competing altogether because you're not going to go through that, or B, you have to be traumatized even further by going through this super invasive exam. There's no reason for it.
Absolutely. And the point that you bring up too, Lenny, that I want to make right before we take a break here is you're talking about trauma, which now introduces mental health. And there's nowhere in this bill that covers mental health or potential damages or ramifications from this child. And it's just really interesting because it's passed by the party that values life, right? That is pro-life and talks about, not to take a side here, but I'm just, not to take a stance here, but it's just, this is the same party that pushes, that pushes abortion as murder and wants to protect life. But why are we protecting life if we're just going to traumatize it down the road?
Isn't this also the party of small government?
It is, and that's very, very interesting.
These are the same people that claim they don't want the government up in your personal business and that government should be smaller. What the fuck does this is like the exact opposite of that.
This is pretty personal business.
I think that's more libertarian.
I would argue that conservatives probably are argue for smaller government. I think that's a conservative standpoint.
All of their modern laws seem to be authoritarianism, which is big government.
You're not wrong, and that's the ironic thing, Wes. That's the ironic thing.
Let's have a penis inspection oversight committee installed in every local municipality so that we can monitor the inspection of the female genitalia at the local level.
Is that in reference to Florida?
Oh, it's just in reference to how stupid this bill is.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it. Okay. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, obviously further discussion on this. And do we think that we're going to see this in other states? Stick around. Welcome back to the Life Midwest podcast. On the other side of the break, it's your host, Kevin Palmer, Lenny Wells, and Wes Shirley. Hey, if you're looking for ways to support us, we do have a PayPal that's live, paypal.me/thelifemidwest. We appreciate any and all donations, as it does cost money to run and produce the show. If you're looking for free ways to support us, that's okay too. We have plenty of options for you. Hit us up on any of our major social platforms and interact with our social media manager, Lenny, at The Life Midwest. You can also email us, which I always fucking check the emails. Let me do that real quick. By emailing us at support@thelifemidwest.com. We don't provide support, so if you have something that's not working, I can't help you there. But we named the email account support, so there you go. Looks like we got nothing going on in the email world aside from Twitter. I gotta fix those emails. Fix that we're still getting emails from Twitter, but other than that,
I'll fix that. Don't worry about it.
Oh, appreciate it, buddy. All right, social media manager.
Hey, I'm on it.
He's on it like a fat kid on a cupcake. Hey, we also have a website, thelifemidwest.com. Wes, how we doing over there on thelifemidwest.com?
Oh, we doing great over there. We've been steadily chilling for like the last 4 months over there.
Fantastic. Okay. So kind of getting back to the topic at hand of today, obviously quite a serious topic. We, before the break mentioned, are we going to see this in other states? It turns out that we kind of already are seeing this in other states. Ohio is actually not the first state to have passed some sort of bill regarding transgender phobia in sports in kids. Lenny, what do you got for us?
So penis inspection day is a real thing in Florida. So I'll make sure this gets linked into the show notes, but this is from thehill.com as of April 15, 2021. The headline reads, Florida's new ban on transgender students in sports would allow schools to subject minors to genital inspections. So yeah, it's from the Florida House bill titled the, quote, Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Basically what it does is it bans transgender female athletes from competing in women's athletic events for high school and college. Although they do note that transgender male athletes can still compete on either team. And this, so just so everyone's on the same page, this is saying that if you go from transition from male to female, you cannot compete in women's sports teams at the high school and collegiate level. But if you go transition from woman to man, you can compete on either team. And this is from the belief that basically what this boils down to is that some people believe that men are biologically superior in strength and speed to women. So what they're
testosterone.
Yeah, something like that. Basically what they're trying to do is prevent just men from taking advantage of what they see as a lower skill ceiling and just dominating women in sports. So whereas they have no problem with transgender male athletes because I guess it's like coming in at a handicap or or at a disadvantage. Anyways, so but yeah, this is Ohio's far from the first state rather to implement something like this. So we've got Mississippi bans transgender athletes from competing on girls or women's sports teams. I think there's something like that in Idaho, and where else did I see it? This isn't a new issue, and it's a little bit more widespread, but it's also it's more widespread than you think it should be. But if you're going to think about places where this would be a problem, or this would be state law, it's in all the places you'd expect.
Before I kick it over to Wes for his thoughts, I just want to clarify something, or I just want to drop my 2 cents in this. This is an emotional law. And what I mean by that is this is a knee-jerk reaction to something that people, lawmakers in this case, do not understand. And instead of actually doing the service to the people that is due, which is to seek out what we do not know, in my opinion, the duty is to seek out what we do not know and do not understand and try to better understand it so that we can be better. And in this case, we are not being better. We are having an emotional knee-jerk reaction to something that we don't understand. We are fearing what we don't understand, and it is going to be at the cost of mental health and just general well-being of our children, of our future generations. And we're teaching them that, sure, okay, at some point, winning does matter. But it doesn't matter to the point where it comes before the well-being, safety, and mental health of a fucking child. We now take it over to our Thai correspondent, Wes Shirley, for more. Wes?
Hi. So, I have a knee-jerk reaction to this whole thing as well. Isn't any of this like a HIPAA violation? We're leaving a woman's gender or sexual assigned sex or whatever to be discovered upon everyone at a school event or within the school's care. Like, they make you take physicals when you're going for sports anyways. Can't they just have the doctor make a check mark saying, yeah, you're who I say you are, a boy or a girl? Like, if they wanted to be smart about it, like, that would be the way to do it, I would imagine. Is just, yeah, since you have to get a physical to play sports anyways, just have the doctor check mark who you are. No discussion afterwards.
That's actually a really, really good point. If we don't want to psychologically damage children, we could just rely on the physical that we already require.
Well, wouldn't a disclosure like that also be like a HIPAA violation? You know what? Hold on. Let me see if I can get Brittany in here because she understands HIPAA pretty well. Hey, hold on one second. Hey, Brittany. Okay, so we've got my wife Brittany here. She is a HIPAA master. She understands HIPAA better than the three of us do. So, Brittany, can you explain why a doctor reporting on someone's sex, as it were, and the status of their genitals is not a HIPAA violation?
Well, it depends on what the context of that is.
Okay.
So essentially all HIPAA does is protect your health information from medical professionals giving away. So like, say you have HIV or something, a doctor can't tell your family members or anybody that they personally know that you have HIV. However, if there is a request made for that information and there's a waiver, they can definitely answer that question. So that's why, excuse me, that's why schools can check your vaccine statuses, and that's why like some jobs and things like that require you to show a vaccine, because it's technically protected information, but there's a waiver in that information. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So if any girl wants to play sports or woman wants to play sports, they have to sign a waiver saying a doctor can disclose the size of my clitoris?
I guess I haven't read the law, so I don't know exactly what it says. But I do know that because that is a information that the school or whatever is requesting, that information can be given up. So as long as it's on that waiver, that like when you go get a sports physical for high school, that would be, I guess, probably one of the questions on that physical report, and that can be answered because it's like a waived information. I guess without that waiver, this, like, a doctor's office can't just go to a school and say, oh, hey, by the way, this person is, trans, and we've been doing their gender healthcare. But if there's a waiver, I guess that kind of like trumps that.
This all sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's garbage. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a HIPAA violation because of the context of how it's being requested.
And even if it was a HIPAA violation, I'm sure the bill would have had some sort of clause to make it so that it wasn't one, or some bullshit like that, right?
Oh yeah, they definitely would have had a workaround.
Disgusting.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thanks for joining us, Brittany. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you to Brittany for hopping on the show real quick and just kind of offering her expertise and knowledge with the field that she works in. Wes, Lenny, any final thoughts before we go to the shout outs this week?
I don't have any final thoughts other than this is some dystopian nightmare almost.
Yeah, this is going to be used as a tool to marginalize not only trans, but women who have, higher testosterone, people of different races within places where the majority of the race looks a certain way. If you look different, be like, hey, let's make sure this person's not a man, It's ridiculous. Yeah, absolute effed.
This just seems like something straight out of like fucking like Handmaid's Tale, honestly.
Yeah, that's not a bad comparison.
I always like when I throw out like a hot take and Lenny's like, yeah, Kevin's right.
Yeah, it's not really a hot take.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Sure, probably the people that thought of this bullshit probably would say that it's a hot take, but we've also determined that they're probably idiots.
We've determined that they are likely wrong.
I hope they write into us. Give us a cease and desist or something.
You think the Ohio State legislature is going to give us a cease and desist from talking about a bill that's been signed into law? You know what, Wes? I actually hope that they do, so that way we can like fucking take them to court.
No, I don't want to take them to court. We just need a boogeyman on this podcast, and I think they would be perfect.
On that note, it's been real. It's been very real. We've had a little bit of fun somewhere along the lines, but it's mostly been real. Wes, who do you want to shout out this week, buddy?
A big schlurp to Yui for loving me or whatever.
Kevin, who are you shouting out this week?
This week, I want to shout out my beautiful fiance Ashley. I want to shout out the idiots that we have representing the state of Ohio. That's more of an anti-shout out, I guess. And that's pretty much all. You know what? And shout out Lenny and Wes for having a kick-ass episode without me last week. Good for you guys.
Yeah, we don't need you.
Aw, thanks. That's not true. We actually really do. Stop.
Yeah.
Lenny, how about you?
As always, I want to give my first shout out goes out to my awesome wife Brittany, for putting up with me and blocking out the time so I can do this, but also especially this week for her expertise in HIPAA where we're dumb. I want to give an anti-shout out to the Ohio State legislator. Fuck you guys. This is super bad, and you should do anything in your power to correct this course of action at your earliest convenience. Thanks very much. Big shout out to Kevin for making last week's episode somewhat coherent. You did an amazing job putting us all together. And I want to give a supportive shout out to all the people in Ohio that this law is going to negatively impact. I hope that it gets changed very soon.
That's a good shout out. I want to echo that as well. That's and as far as the legislators go, do better. Be better. On that note, folks, leave us a review on your favorite listening platform. Join the discussion at any of our major social platforms at The Life Midwest, or drop us an email at support@thelifemidwest.
Yeah,
and
especially for this one, we really are curious to know our listeners' opinions and thoughts, especially for this episode.
Absolutely.
I wonder how many listeners we lose and how many we gain from this. This is really divisive.
This is kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, except it's a podcast and the ratings don't matter.
They don't matter,
note, folks,
but we want you to give them.
Yeah. On that note, folks, call your mom. Shout out to parents as well. We will talk to you guys next Saturday and every Saturday. Join us next week. We'll be talking about the student loan debt crisis. So stick around for that, and subscribe, like, review, all that good stuff. So we'll talk to you next Saturday and every Saturday here on the Life Midwest podcast. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye.